Hi everyone, and welcome to this new format. So this is a new video format called Swift Community, and the concept here is very simple. I'm going to have some people from the Swift community come in a video with me, and we are going to discuss a topic that they are particularly knowledgeable about. So for this video, I'm very lucky to have Antoine with me. Hello, Antoine.
Hello.
So as you can see on the screen, with Antoine, we're going to discuss about the content of one of his many blog posts, which is about custom operators in Swift.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I think this is a super interesting topic, and it has many different cases. I think to start with, I referenced the blog post right here, and all this code is available online. So whenever you think this went way too fast, just make sure you can check out the code.
So yeah, there will be a link to the playground and the blog post in the description of the video.
Yeah, so let's just directly jump in. And yeah, before I show the first example, I just want to point out that there are several kind of custom operators, and you can generate them yourself. But there are a lot of operators we're probably used to already, like dividing two numbers with each other, or adding a number to another number. The plus sign in that case is an example of an operator, which we're all familiar with. But it opens up a lot of possibilities once you start looking into custom operators. And it's a bit more complex than just how I describe it now, but I'll definitely think you'll be better at it once you've seen this video.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and start jumping into some examples.
Exactly. Yeah, so the first one is the prefix operator, and the prefix, it's all in the name. It's an operator that you put in front of something. And I try to come up with an example that kind of makes sense, that might even be actually usable in a project. And in this case, it's converting a number, in this case a price, and creates a dollar string of it.
So formatting basically a number into a string to display it to the user.
Yeah, exactly, with the local currency format. So in this case, it's $1, but if you're in Europe, it could be a euro sign.
Of course.
And the way to do that is by using a number formatter, but it might not always be nice to copy paste this everywhere in your code. So it's super nice to have a custom operator to do this. And in this case, I chose to use this symbol. I don't even know how you call this symbol, actually. That's quite funny, but you can choose whatever you want in this place. And what you do is you take the input value, which in this case is an NS number, and you can convert it to a string with the logic you want. So in this case, we use the currency formatter. We set a number style to use currency, and we use the local current locale.
And so I think we can explicitly point out that what's very interesting in the way that we implement operators in Swift is that they are implemented just as regular functions, except that the name of the function, so you use a special character, and that's what tells the compiler, because there is a specific, if I'm right, set of characters that can be used as operators, but otherwise it's just the same as implementing a function.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some people are going quite crazy with the type of operator. I've seen some people using emojis as custom operators. That's quite a discussion you can get from doing that. But yeah, I think it's up to you as a developer to choose the right operator. I think it's also important to mention, it's a certain learning curve. It's a custom operator, and it might be hard to find out that your project supports this custom operator. So you might want to make sure that your colleagues know what you're doing here, and that it's a common thing to do in your project.
Indeed.
So as it's a playground, we can actually run this code, and we can see that the custom operator is placed just in front of the number.
Because it's a prefix operator, right?
Yeah. So prefix, so in front of. Kind of, and as you can see right down here, we see the output. Maybe I can make this a bit larger. That makes the code larger as well. But we can see that these are the converted numbers we used. In this case, the 843 example right here. But it's a string with a dollar sign. So it's a pretty neat way of converting a number into a string value that you want to display in your UI.
Indeed, yes. And I think what you said just a little bit before about this learning curve when you use custom operators, I think it's a very important point, because as we can see, like here, the operator, it acts kind of as a shortcut. So for number formatting, and I think we can both agree that if we were to format amount into a string only in 1 or 2 places of the project, this kind of operator, it would probably do more harm than good. But of course, if we deal with an application that does, for instance, like accounting or e-commerce, and we are going to have amounts all over the place, then of course it can be like really, really useful, and people will know what it means because it's going to be everywhere in the project.
Yeah, exactly. You make a very good point. And I think it's a case per case as well, and what suits your project. But yeah, it's good to know at least the possibilities.
Exactly.
All right, so yeah, this is a prefix operator. Obviously, there's also a postfix operator.
Of course.
From which the most common one might be the unwrap operator, which you use to unwrap an optional. In this case, I created a postfix operator using the percentage. And what it does, it's converting a number into a percentage, which you could use for example, a progress view. It might be a bit odd, but I realized for myself in app development, I often have a number which is like 50, but it should be 0.5 to use with progress view, for example. So
I think this is interesting, because when we look at the function, we can see that it's not just dividing by 100. You also need to cast the int into a float. So it's actually 2 operations, and it takes like a little bit of space in the code.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we can run this code as well. And the nice thing of Playground is that you can see it inline what it's doing. So in this case, it's set to 20%. We could also set it to 80%, for example, and run the code again. And then you can see that it fills up 80%.
Okay, so yeah, that's very interesting. And we are starting maybe to see like some kind of pattern, because both with prefix and postfix operators, what we are doing is we take a value from one given type, we format it somehow, and we turn it into another type. So it's kind of like, this map, maybe like ID.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but the great thing here is that it really cleans up your code.
Definitely.
On implementation level, you will only have this piece where you set the value with a percentage. Yeah, it's super neat.
Yeah, and I mean, people, of course, there is always this trade-off, when you do custom operators between like encapsulating complex features and readability. But here, I think we are in the situation where, you read 80%. It's something that we are used to reading like just in our day-to-day life. I think it's a very good example where a custom operator adds readability with almost, I would say, like no bad consequences.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is all about readability. Yeah, so we now had a prefix, so in front of a value, and we had a postfix after a number. But there's also an infix, which comes down to in between. And
okay, so for instance, it's like the plus or minus operator that we are familiar with.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, most of the default types in Swift conform to a lot of those operators. So you can combine 2 arrays together, 2 numbers, obviously. They're all implemented and have their support for the infix operator, which you just described. But there might be cases that you want to create your own custom infix operator. And in this case, I created one to get the unique values of 2 sets. And
okay,
I honestly doubt whether this is really a good use case. I mainly use it to demonstrate what you can do with an infix operator.
Yes.
In my experience with day-to-day development, I haven't really written a lot of custom infix operators. But I do realize that there are cases where you would, for example, map into a certain error type with the error that is thrown on the left-hand side. That could really clean up your code. It's a bit hard to imagine. I didn't describe the code right here, but I guess you can take it as, really think whether it's adding value or not, which is kind of the general rule with custom operators, I think.
Yeah, basically, infix operators, they're kind for like, we could say, algebraic operation, because you take 2 data, 2 pieces of 2 different types, maybe, or the same type, and you combine them into a new value. So for instance, I think like maybe for custom code, the most basic example is if you are dealing with vectors, for instance, 3D vectors, and you want to be able to add vectors together or do some vector specific operation like vector product or that kind of stuff, that's where, I mean, you use it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I do think that this code example really shows what an infix operator can do. It's super simple. We have two sets of numbers, or integers in this case, where we have a 1, 4, and a 5, and a 1, 4, and a 6.
Okay.
It should be fairly doable for us humans to find out the unique values in these two arrays, in these two sets. But let's see how we can do this. So what I did is I've created a custom infix operator using the plus minus, which basically comes down, like add values and reduce values if the value is already in the destination set. We have a left-hand side set and a right-hand side set, and we use the union method available on sets to generate a unique set of numbers. And once again, you might want to use this union method directly in most cases, but it's just to describe what an infix operator can do.
And I think maybe we can focus a little bit on this left-hand side and right-hand side, because what's happening here is that infix operator, they take two arguments, right? And basically, the first argument of the function is the argument on the left of the operator, and the second argument of the function is the one on the right of the operator. Hence, the choice of name that you had for these two arguments, right?
Yeah, that's entirely correct. So in this case, we have the first numbers being the left-hand side, and the second numbers, which is on the right side of the infix operator, the right-hand side. So yeah, that's correct. So let's run this code and see what it does.
So is it going to work as we expect? So yeah, we have like our four unique values.
Yeah, exactly. So it's making use of the union, and that does all the magic. And this piece is the custom operator we have defined. One thing to point out here, and it's a bit complicated to really cover in this short video, but there are operator declarations available for the precedence option. So in this case, we have an addition precedence, and it's all about priority. So I think we all know the math about like plus minus and dividing numbers, which one goes first. So yeah, there's a certain order with infix operators, which one should be executed first. And there are several options. So if you want to know more about that, I definitely recommend going to this documentation from Apple, where it's all better described than I can ever do in this video.
But yes, I think that maybe one thing we can point out also is that, so as you said, it's a shortcut for a call to the union method. And of course, when there is only one example, it's hard to see like the advantage of one over the other. But I think maybe it's when you start to get like complex expression, if there were to be like several like unions chained together or compounded together, then maybe it's easier to read operators being compounded together than method calls.
Yeah, exactly. I think some people that use combine try to use it to combine two publishers, for example. There are several use cases you can think of.
Yeah, maybe like a good example for people who are doing iOS back in the days of Objective-C is that when you were using NS number, you had no operators. You need to call methods like add, subtract, and whenever you were doing like a little bit complex math, it would be like very fast, a lot of code, and it would be much harder to read than when you just use like operators that are just one or two characters. Okay,
that's another case.
Postfix and infix. And maybe there are also other kind of operators you can show us?
Yes, definitely. So there's another one that's the custom compound assignment. So let's see how that looks. And before we start, this is a bit of a different operator. So in the previous examples, we really defined like an infix operator using the keyword operator. And custom compound assignment will make use of a static method, which we'll see in a bit. But before we dive into that, I want to show you two structures I created. In this case, we have a team, and the team has a title and a few members. And it has a mutating method to add a new member to the team.
Okay.
It's quite obvious. So we also have a member, which takes a name. Super simple, just two structures to demonstrate what we're gonna create here. So I created the team here already. It's developers having a country with the blue, red, and white colors. And in this case, there's 2 people in there. It's Antoine, that's me, and Donny, who's also from the Netherlands.
Oh.
And normally you would just use the team.add a new member.
Yeah.
That's the default way of doing it. But what we can do is we can create a custom compound assignment operator. And this is probably something you know from calculations, adding a number to another number.
Yes, indeed. So, it's familiar, this operator.
Exactly. Yeah. So here we define the operator itself. And this is kind of similar to the equatable protocol implementation, where you have the double is symbol. Anyway, we have the left-hand side here, which in this case is an in-out attribute. And that means that we can really alter the input parameter. So it kind of requires the team to be mutable and to do something with it. And that's important because we're going to use the mutating method add, which adding a member to the team. So once again, we have a left-hand side, which we know from before, and we have the right-hand side, which is the member. And what we do is we call the left-hand side, which is the team, and we use the add method to add the new member.
Okay.
So how does this look? Well, in this case, we're adding Vincent to the team because Vincent is from France, and France
and the colors are the same, just in reverse order, right?
Exactly. So you're definitely part of the team, but right now we can use the new compound assignment operator we defined. This looks pretty neat, as if we are calculating with numbers.
Yeah, it does look very, very neat, and we can see that if we had like an application, for instance, where we do sports, maybe a soccer simulation game, where you are the manager of the team, this could be very useful to like simplify the code base. And I think we can also like point out the fact that there is kind of a pattern here, is that basically what we are doing is that we have an object, so a team, and one of its property is an array. And what we are doing is that we are taking, the feature of the array to be able to add new elements to it. And we are kind of lifting this feature to also make it accessible from the enclosing type, we could say.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You can go crazy here. You can do, you can, for example, create a method to add another constraint to a view or add a subview to a view. You name it. It's all possible.
So yeah, when you are doing UI kit, for instance, it can be very useful, because something that we can also point out is the fact that so when we look at the implementation of the function plus equals, we can see that there are types, and these functions, they are statically typed. Basically this is what Swift calls an overload, I think. And so the right method to be called is going to be chosen by the compiler at compile time. So we could have different overloads for the same operator, but with different types. For instance, if we have members in the team, but we could have also other arrays in the teams, and we could define this operator for the values of these other arrays.
Yeah, I think we could do it live right here. We could create one with the right-hand side team, if I'm correct.
Oh, yes. So that we could like merge 2 teams together, basically.
Yeah, I think this should work, but I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, okay.
Maybe it's add multiple or something like this.
Yeah, contents off. Is that's maybe we need to.
Oh no, you need to get the array. I think you need to do left.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and then append contents off.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Live coding. Yeah, that's right. The add method was custom defined by ourselves, obviously, so that doesn't take an array.
That makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, we can even try using it. So let's create another team and give it a title, maybe other colors, and then we give it a member. Which name do you want to give it? Maybe Boris. Boris is a typical French name, isn't it? Then we can get rid of this. I'm not sure why I'm doing that. And then we can say, oh, that's right, we have another team. This is team 2. And then we need to say team plus is team 2. That should work now, right?
Yes.
There we go. So if we now print out team, then the team should have somebody with a different color. And to be precise, we need to give it a different color. So maybe we can do German. There we go.
Perfect.
And then we print out. There we go. We have a Boris with different colors.
So we can see we have been now able to like absorb one team into another with this compound operator. So yes, that's very interesting. And as you said, like the use cases when you are managing complex objects that hold collections, like their properties are collections of other kind of data. So constraints for UI view. And for instance, like in a UI view, you have constraints, but you also have layers. And so, for instance, you could imagine having a compound operator to add a new layer, but also to add a new constraint.
Exactly. Yeah. You name it, and you can do it. And yeah, that's actually a quite nice segue into the next operators example.
Oh yes.
For the ones that followed me on Twitter, they might have run into this April Fool's joke I made. I'll show the implementation in a bit, but this is what I created. I kind of made the April Fool's joke that you can calculate with emojis. And you know what I did is, you know, if you go to the barber shop, this will turn into a baby face. That was one of the jokes I made, and all these calculations are an example of that. So
if you run the code, we are going to see like on the right and in the console that indeed the emojis, they are somehow like merged together with some rules that make it that the resulting emoji feels like a combination of the two arguments.
Exactly. So yeah, we have a skateboard with a snowflake, and then it turns out to be a snowboarder. You know, it's super stupid, but yeah. Funny enough, a lot of people, really thought this was possible, and they tried it out, and it didn't work. And a sharp eye would notice that the plus sign here is turned into a green.
So it means it's a user-defined operation, right?
Exactly. So yeah, that could hint you into the fact that this is a custom operator. And in this case, what I did, I just created a custom operator with a plus sign, and I took a left-hand side string and a right-hand side string, and I just go over the different possibilities, which are all aesthetically defined. So no magic here. This is not something that's working by default. But yeah, here again, you can see if the left-hand side is a skateboard or the right-hand side is the snowflake, then it turns out to be a snowboarder. And yeah, this is how I defined all those custom symbols where it's interesting to point out that here we have a combination of multiple custom operators.
Yes, so it shows that even though you have only defined one version of the operator, right? The one that takes two strings and returns a new string, we can chain them together. And I think it also like brings back to what you said about precedence, because we don't need parentheses. The compiler is able to resolve which computation must be done first, thanks to this precedence.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if we break it down and we run the code, we should still see an emoji. And then if we add another one, so this is basically how it calculates the final outcome.
It goes from left to right.
Exactly, and basically the last one makes it a pizza. So I think if I recall correctly, this is the combination making actually the pizza, as you can see here. So it's slowly moving into the final output. It's a pretty neat example. I'm not sure how useful this is in day-to-day projects, but maybe it inspires people to do something with it.
Yeah, definitely. It's not, of course, something that we would like recommend to put in your project, but the idea of defining this operator that operates on types that we already know, it shows that you can do a lot of things with custom operators. You can use them in an extension. You don't need to use them on types that you own. You can use them just on any type to do anything that makes sense in the context of your project.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I think that covers all the operators, which are once again all defined in this playground, which is available online. So if this went too fast, I would say go over it yourself on your own speed.
Yeah, so I think, as you said, we've covered a lot of ground. I think now, like for the people watching the video, you have a good understanding of how custom operators work in Swift, what you can do with them, and how you can implement them. Well, I just have to say thanks a lot again, Antoine, for joining me for this first edition of Swift community.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. I really found it interesting to go over this playground together, and hopefully it's useful for many.
Awesome. So for you watching the video, it's as always, if you enjoyed this content, you can leave a like. If you have any comments, if maybe you are already using custom operators in your project, if you plan to use them, if you have questions, you can say it in the comment, and you can subscribe to the channel to stay tuned for more content. Thank you a lot for watching. See you.
Bye-bye.